Have you ever felt like your life is stuck on repeat? Like no matter how much you try to change, you keep ending up in the same place, with the same problems, the same emotional triggers, the same stories playing out over and over again. Maybe you start a new relationship full of excitement, but before long, that familiar fear of being abandoned creeps back in. Or maybe at work you hold yourself back, because some part of you still believes you're not good enough. Echoes of voices from childhood that told you you'd never make it. And sometimes it's not even about something specific. You just feel heavy, like a sadness sitting in your chest for no obvious reason. But if you really sit with it, it smells like something old, like grief that never got processed. Carl Jung, one of the most influential thinkers in psychology, noticed something profound. We often don't respond to the present moment as it truly is. We react as though we're still living through moments from our past. It's like wearing glasses tinted by everything we've been through, every hurt, every trauma, every unresolved story, and trying to navigate life through that blur. That's why sometimes a simple comment from someone can feel like a deep personal attack, or why a text left on read for a few hours fills you with panic. It's not really about the now, it's about something old, something unfinished. According to Jung, this is what's known as projection. It's when we unknowingly paint our past onto the present, seeing not what is, but what was projected onto other people, onto situations, even onto the world. Let's say you had a parent who constantly criticized you growing up. Even as an adult, when your boss gives you feedback, it doesn't feel like helpful input. It feels like you're being torn down again. That's not the present moment talking. That's a memory coming back to life. To protect ourselves from feeling those old wounds again, we create what Jung called the persona, a kind of social mask. It's the version of ourselves we present to the world. Maybe it's the always capable, always smiling one, or the one who never lets their guard down, or the people pleaser who avoids conflict at all costs. These masks serve a purpose. They help us function, survive, belong. But they can also trap us, because the more we identify with them, the more we drift away from who we really are. And that's where the cycle begins. The past shapes how we see the present, and then we keep repeating the same emotional loops without realizing it. We're not living now, we're reenacting old scripts. And until we become aware of that, we stay stuck. But here's the good news: there is a way out. It starts with learning to spot the difference between what's actually happening in the moment and what's just an echo from the past. Once we do that, we stop letting old stories run the show. We start choosing our responses instead of reacting from our wounds. This video is for anyone who's tired of that loop, for anyone who's wondered, why does this keep happening to me? Or why do I keep feeling this way, no matter what changes around me? We're diving into how Jung believed you could break free, not with magic, but with awareness, courage, and practical steps. Now let's zoom out for a moment. Why is it so hard to just move on? Society loves to tell us to let go of the past. Don't look back, they say. Just keep moving. But if it were that easy, we wouldn't be here having this conversation, would we? Jung understood that our view of the world is never truly objective. We don't see reality as it is, we see it as we are. Each of us filters the world through our experiences, our history, our wounds, and our wiring. In his work, Psychological Types, Jung explained that people perceive and relate to reality in different ways. Some of us process the world through thinking and logic. Others lead with emotion. Some are grounded in what they can touch and see right now. And some are dreamers focused on possibilities, imagination, and intuition. These are our core psychological functions: thinking, feeling, sensing, and intuition. They're not just personality traits, they're filters. They shape what we notice, what we care about, what we fear, and what we value. Combine that with whether someone tends to be more inward-focused, introverted, or outward-focused, extroverted, and you've got the glasses through which they see the world. But here's the key, those glasses don't stay clean. They get smudged by everything we've been through, especially the hard stuff. When we experience trauma or deep pain, it stains our perception. We start interpreting present situations through that stained lens. A boss's neutral comment feels like an attack. A loved one needing space feels like abandonment all over again. And we respond accordingly, not to the situation at hand, but to the ghost of an older one. Jung saw this time and again in his patients. Highly intelligent, capable people trapped in the same emotional cycles. Not because they were weak, but because they didn't realize the past was still playing on loop right in front of their eyes. And the first step out of that loop, realizing the lens exists at all. Now that we understand, we don't see the world as it is, but through the lens of our experiences, it's time to dive into one of the most powerful and sneaky concepts in Jung's work, projections. Now, you might have heard this word before. You're projecting, it's tossed around in arguments and online debates all the time. But in Jungian psychology, projection is much deeper than just blaming others for our problems. It's actually one of the main ways our unconscious mind tries to deal with pain. And if we don't recognize it, it silently controls our life. Let's break it down. Imagine someone who grew up with a father who was constantly critical. No matter what they did, it was never enough. Maybe that father dismissed their dreams, made them feel small, or constantly pointed out their flaws. Fast forward years later, they're an adult now, maybe successful, maybe living far from home. But whenever an authority figure speaks to them, especially with critique, something in them snaps. They feel defensive, hurt, maybe even angry or ashamed. But here's the thing. It's not really about that person in front of them. It's about the past. The boss's comment isn't just a comment. It's their father's voice all over again. That's projection. When we take something that belongs to our inner world, an emotion, an old fear, a wound we haven't dealt with, and we unconsciously place it onto someone or something outside of us. Jung once said, projection turns the world into a replica of your own unknown face. That hits hard, because what he meant is that we tend to see in others the things we haven't accepted or even acknowledged in ourselves. It's why sometimes different people start to feel like the same person. You meet someone new and slowly they start to remind you of an ex who hurt you, or a friend who betrayed you, or a family member who made you feel invisible. You start thinking, this person is just like them. But what if they're not? What if what you're really reacting to isn't them, but your memory of someone else? Now, this doesn't mean people can't actually do harmful things, but it does mean that your emotional intensity, your reaction, your inner story might be colored by something old, something you haven't fully faced yet. And here's the twist, projection doesn't only happen in negative ways. Sometimes we project our dreams, our ideals, our hopes onto someone too. Ever fallen head over heels in love with someone because they just seemed perfect? They felt like your soulmate. You imagined a future with them. You saw them as your ideal partner until slowly reality set in. They didn't meet those expectations, and the crash was painful. Why? Because the image you had of them wasn't based on who they really were. It was based on your projection. Jung talked a lot about this through the concepts of anima and animus, the unconscious images of the feminine and masculine that live inside us. We carry these inner blueprints shaped by culture, upbringing, and personal experiences. And when we meet someone who seems to match that inner image, our psyche lights up. We don't fall in love with the person, we fall in love with the projection. And here's the most sobering truth of all, projection is not something that just happens to us. It's something we do automatically without even knowing it. That's why it's so hard to catch. It's like wearing a costume and forgetting it's not your actual skin. So what do we do with this? How do we stop letting projection hijack our emotions and our relationships? Well, the first step is awareness. Catching yourself in those moments when your reaction feels bigger than the situation, when your emotional response seems to come from somewhere deeper than the present, when you're looking at someone and feeling something that doesn't quite match who they actually are. But projections don't operate alone. There's another layer just as important, and that's the mask we wear to hide from those old wounds. Jung called it the persona. The persona is like our social armor. It's who we present to the world, and it's necessary. It's how we function in society. You show up to work as the confident professional. You hang out with friends as the funny one, or the listener, or the problem solver. We all do it. And to some extent, we have to. The problem is when we forget that it's just a part of us, not the whole story. Jung described the persona as a mask designed on one hand to make a definite impression upon others, and on the other to conceal the true nature of the individual. It's a dual-purpose disguise. It protects us, but it also hides us. And when we start believing we are that mask, we lose touch with ourselves. Think about someone who grew up believing they had to be the strong one to be loved. They become that person independent, never asks for help, solves everything on their own. But deep down, they're exhausted, lonely, afraid of being seen as weak. Or take someone who was labeled too much as a child, too loud, too emotional, too intense. So they learn to be quiet, agreeable, easy to be around. But inside they're full of unspoken anger and sadness. They're disconnected from what they actually want. In both cases, the mask started as protection, but over time it became a prison. And that prison is built on fear. Fear of being rejected. Fear of being judged. Fear of what might happen if we actually let people see the real us. Now, Jung didn't say we should get rid of the persona completely. That wouldn't be realistic. We need it. But what he did say is that we need to become conscious of it, to know when we're speaking from the mask and when we're speaking from our true self. When you don't know the difference, you end up living on autopilot, trapped in old patterns, playing roles that might not even be yours anymore. Your life becomes a script written by past pain instead of present choice. But here's the beautiful part. Once you see the mask for what it is, it loses its power. And that finally is the doorway to something new. So here we are. You've learned how the past shapes your perception of the present through projections, through personas, through stories that still echo inside of you. And now comes the question that matters most. How do you break free? Well, first, let's be honest. Freedom from the past doesn't happen just by wanting it. You can't snap your fingers and erase the old wounds. You can't repeat motivational quotes and expect the pain to disappear. Jung didn't believe in bypassing struggle with empty positivity. He believed in conscious awareness, and that begins with a very specific kind of noticing. It's about catching yourself in the moment, not just after the fact, but while it's happening, when you're reacting to something in the present that doesn't quite match the reality in front of you. Maybe it's during a meeting when your hands start sweating because someone disagrees with your idea. Maybe it's in a conversation with your partner where something small turns into a big argument, and somewhere deep down a little voice whispers, "This isn't really about them, is it?" That's the key, that voice, that moment of clarity, that's your power. Because until we become aware of our unconscious patterns, they keep running the show. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So how do we start making the unconscious conscious? Let's talk about a few practical ways. Real tools you can use right now. 1. Practice self-observation with curiosity, not judgment. Start by checking in with yourself during the day. Just pause and ask, what am I feeling right now? Does this reaction match what's actually happening? Does this situation remind me of something or someone from my past? That question alone can uncover projection. If your emotions feel too big for the moment, there's a good chance you're reacting to an old wound. 2. Start a reflective journal. Jung believed that writing helps bring unconscious material into the light. You don't need to write a novel just a few lines at the end of the day. Try this. When did I feel most triggered today? What emotions came up strongly? Who or what did it remind me of? Often by simply writing it down, you'll start to see patterns emerge, ones that were hiding just beneath the surface. 3. Identify your personas. This is a game changer. Ask yourself, what role am I playing right now? Am I being the strong one, the fixer, the people pleaser? Then ask, what am I afraid would happen if I stopped playing that role? You don't have to stop being functional or professional, but knowing when you're performing versus when you're being authentic, that awareness creates choice. And with choice comes freedom. 4. Allow yourself to feel without fixing. This is hard, but so important. When sadness comes, or fear or anger, don't rush to push it away. Sit with it. Ask, what exactly am I feeling? Where do I feel it in my body? If this emotion had a voice, what would it say? So often, our deepest feelings carry messages from our past. Listening to them rather than silencing them is how healing begins. 5. Seek out safe reflection spaces. While self-work is powerful, there are moments when we need someone else to help us see what we can't. Therapy, especially Jungian analysis, can offer that mirror. Or maybe it's a trusted mentor, a close friend, or a support group. As Jung said, the unconscious often needs another person to reveal itself. We heal in connection. Now let's be clear. This is not an overnight transformation. You don't wake up one day completely free of old patterns. But every time you pause and say, wait, is this me reacting to the present or to my past? You're creating a space. And in that space is your freedom. Because in that space, you stop reacting on autopilot. You start choosing. You start living now, not in yesterday's pain. You start becoming the author of your life instead of just acting out old scripts. And maybe the most important truth of all, you're not broken. You're not doomed to repeat these patterns forever. What happened to you, those wounds, those moments that shaped you, they're real. They matter. But they don't have to keep writing your story. You can write something new. Your future doesn't have to sound like the past. You can live a life that's yours, not one dictated by other people's voices or the shadows of old pain. So now I want to hear from you. What part of this resonated most deeply? Did you recognize any projection or mask you've worn? Drop it in the comments. You'll be surprised how powerful just putting it into words can be. Sometimes that's the first real step to changing everything. And if this video spoke to you, don't stop here. Hit subscribe. There's a whole series coming that goes even deeper into these concepts. I promise it's worth it. You deserve a life that's real, whole, and fully yours. I'll see you in the next one.